Near Dark is a 1987 horror movie directed by Kathryn Bigelow, and it stars Adrian Pasdar, Jenny Wright, Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton. Now, this film is essentially about a boy who falls in love with a girl who he doesn't know is a vampire, and she turns him into a vampire, and he has to try and adapt to becoming this vampire and live their way of life. Now, yet again, this is one of the horror movies, one of the big horror movies of the 80s that I haven't seen before. It's something that I always put on the back burner, something that I always thought I'm going to watch that one day, and turned out never watching it. And over 30 years later, I finally decided to start watching it. Now, to be honest, I didn't really know what to expect for Near Dark. I didn't even read the synopsis of this film. I just knew that it was about vampires, or I thought it was about vampires, and that was it. There's nothing else I knew about it. And I essentially thought this movie starred Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton. I thought those two were the main characters of this film, and it was about those two, but I was completely wrong. I didn't even know that Adrian Pasdar was in this film. That I never saw him in any of the posters or any of the promotional shots or nothing. I never even knew he was in this. So when I first seen it, I was like, I know him from somewhere. And it turned out he was Peter Petrelli's brother, Nathan Petrelli from Heroes. So I was a bit taken aback when I first watched the film. I thought, right, okay, these two characters have been introduced at the beginning. It was Caleb and May. And I was like, right, okay, are those two going to die straight away? It turns out no, she's one of the vampires. And straight away when I found out they weren't going to die, or Caleb at least wasn't going to die, I was thinking, this is a lot like Twilight. Now, I know that Twilight came out in 2008 and Near Dark came out in 1987, but because I watched Twilight first, unfortunately, it just felt like a Twilight movie. Again, just straight off the bat. But I do think that this was a lot better than Twilight. So I'm guessing that maybe, is it Stephanie Myers that wrote Twilight or directed Twilight? Whoever wrote the Twilight books, they must have taken inspiration from Near Dark. But like I said, this was a darker, better version of Twilight. It was a lot better, and in fact I really did enjoy Near Dark, and I think it's because I wasn't going into this film knowing what to expect. And I was pleasantly surprised. If you go to about 23 minutes into the film, you see Adrian Pasdar passing a cinema, and you see that Aliens is playing. Obviously Kathryn Bigelow was married to James Cameron at one point. Now, I don't think I've got any negatives for this film. When I watch a movie to review, I always have notes on positives and negatives, but after I finished watching it, even though I didn't love the film, I didn't have any negatives for the film. But that doesn't mean it's a perfect movie. I just didn't have anything really to nitpick. If I had to say anything, it just reminded me of Twilight. But again, if I watched this movie before 2008, that wouldn't even be an issue at all. So not that many negatives. I just think it wasn't the greatest story. It was a little dull at times. But again, what I really liked about this film was near the middle of the movie, or kind of the third act of the film, something happens that kind of turns the movie on its head, because after his little sister and his dad was out looking for them, they accidentally stumble upon them all, but then the other vampires that he's with want to eat them or kill them, and he's like, no, I can't let that happen. And that's when the film turns itself on its head, and I really like that about it. Now, when I say vampires like this, it's because they never mention themselves as vampires. They don't talk about garlic or anything. They don't even have fangs when they're taking people's blood, so they're not really vampires. They're just these superhumans who don't die, and they hate sunlight, and that's it really. So they're not called vampires, but I like how they're shown in this film. They're not sparkly, they don't have fangs. They're just these kind of outsiders or outcasts that go about killing people just to stay alive. One of the best things about this film was Bill Paxton. I initially thought that Bill Paxton was the main character in this film, and I was a little bit disappointed to find out he wasn't the main character. But regardless, anytime Bill Paxton was on screen, he was so charismatic and funny, and just a really good actor. He didn't seem like Bill Paxton, but he seemed like Bill Paxton. It's hard to explain, but every time he was on screen, he was great. A clever part of this film that I wasn't expecting was the whole vampire scene where Caleb, he was rescued by his dad, and he's obviously dying because he can't go into the sunlight. And he has an idea. It's something that I'd never seen in a vampire film, or a vampire-esque film, was that he asked his dad if he can do a blood transfusion for him. And I was thinking, okay, don't know if that would help because he is a vampire now. But he did the blood transfusion, and it cured him from being this night walker, I would say, and not a vampire. So it was very clever. Again, I never thought about that for any kind of vampire style film before, but it's essentially getting rid of the blood disease that he was given and given fresh blood, and he's cured, so it was great. And obviously his love interest, May, she had to make a decision. Does she want to stay with these vampires and live forever, or does she want to live with the love of her life and live a human life? And she decided on that. She wanted to be with Caleb, and she was given the blood transfusion as well, and it was a kind of happy ending for them. Overall, guys, it was another horror movie that I'd never seen before that I was pleasantly surprised about, and I think it is because I was getting into this movie blind, not knowing at all what the film was about. So what do you think in Near Dark, guys? The reason I went to watch this is because there is a big fan base for it, so I'd like to know your thoughts on what you thought of the movie. Leave your comments down below, and as always, thanks a lot for watching, thanks for subscribing, I'll see you soon, bye bye.